With Tesla now hiring 88 employees for mass production of TeslaBot, the humanoid bot industry is now in second gear. Every major bot vendor and a few we had not yet heard from are now all making major moves. Both Apple and Meta are now reported to be researching bots. Figure has built massive buildings for manufacturing thousands of bots, and Apptronik has partnered with Google and just announced a $350 million funding round. The Chinese bot vendors are also making big moves. Today we'll review the current landscape and see who will survive and who will die. The stakes are as high as they can be. Cern is a chartered financial analyst who's currently running his own investment advisory firm called Brilliant Advice, providing wealth management services. Welcome, Cern. Thank you for joining me here.
Hi, Herbert. Yeah, things are really starting to hot up in the humanoid bot space. This is really great.
Thank you for that. So we call you the bot bull because you have been following the entire industry along with me and others as well, Scott Walter. And one of the things that you've been doing is a lot of these financial forecasts and so forth. But what we're going to do today is go back and look at the main players, the major players. Again, when you've created these forecasts, we want to make sure that people understand this is not, legal advice or investment advice, but this is sort of the things we're just doing to follow the bot industry better. This is one of your tables that you've been doing that's been well received. Almost quite a number of the top bot vendors have participated. They would call you and make sure that we got this accurately. Can you explain what we're looking at here?
Yeah, this is an attempt to sort of identify the key players in the humanoid bot market. Now, I would say that there's probably a few other companies that also deserve to be on this list. However, the frequency now of videos has really diminished for a lot of these companies. Many of them put out a lot of videos for marketing purposes to attract employees to their companies. So it's been a bit more challenging for us to track these, but we've got a list here. The top half of it is largely companies, I would say, in the Western world. The light blue are US based companies, the darker blue are European based companies. And then you've got some other companies like Boston Dynamics that are in the US but owned by a South Korean firm, Hyundai, and Menti Robotics, who is an Israeli company.
Mm.
And then the bottom half of the list, the ones in red are Chinese companies, and then Toyota Research in Japan. So this is a global phenomenon. There are companies all over the world that are developing humanoid robots.
Yeah.
And
And
then
it's hard to go ahead.
I was just going to say, then the attempt here was to sort of track where these companies were in the development process.
Yeah.
And it's gotten more challenging because we don't really know for a lot of these companies because there haven't really been much of an update that we've seen on their progress.
I
Um,
like this. Yeah, this is a great table, of course. And obviously, the most important thing is no, at first, when we did it last year, it was the videos and whether or not they're walking and they have hands and can they demo useful work. Now it's about deploying bots and customers buying them. This row here is going to just, the column here is going to skyrocket. And we're seeing these left, right, and center at this point, right?
yeah, and there should be other columns on this table, like manufacturing capacity
Yeah.
would be an important one. But the challenge right now is that we just don't know yet.
Yeah.
But hopefully over time, we'll be able to flesh this out a bit more. I would imagine as more companies begin to manufacture bots, there will be more information made public, and we'll be able to flesh this table out more.
Okay. Well, you and I and Scott, we've contacted and we're pretty close with all these executives of these companies here. I think it's time for us to go ahead and really build this out, multiple pages of this, and contact them and get that info. So, what we're going to do today is share some big moves that's been happening in the last week or two. That and there's even bigger players, right? Like Meta, Google, and Apple. They're now coming in, and even OpenAI themselves are all talking about it at this point. So I don't know if they're worth putting in yet, surprisingly, but they will be if their research and dev actually succeed. Let's start off with TeslaBot, of course. It's Valentine's Day, so they dropped this. It is curious that this is the second generation. It's not the third generation. I think that they should not be sharing what the third generation looks like, the full bot, honestly. Um, it's not to their benefit to share that to anybody. But what matters more is they are hiring. They've hired 88 job openings that they had published about a week ago. And now here's one example of a job opening here for a production supervisor, TeslaBot. And if you read down here, it says manage up to 45 to 50 production associates, ensuring daily goals are met. This one job is a manager for up to 50 production associates per, so this is crazy. This is we're now talking about mass production, and you can see it in the uh job openings that Tesla has. And so that's, I think, the biggest sign of whether or not Tesla is on track, and if they're truly are going to get to the thousands of bots that they want to have built by the end of this year. Quick
It's
thoughts on what you saw there? Yeah.
Yeah, it's an important sign. Anytime you stuff up like that, it's definitely a sign. It's a very clear sign, and it may be a sign of what's about to happen in 6 months. Interestingly, what they don't say there is that the 45 to 50 production associates,
Mm.
those are robots that this person will be supervising. I'm joking, but that would be funny if it was, where each production supervisor is supervising other bots that are doing the work. That would be ideal in terms of the production capacity.
Yeah, you had me there had me going there for a second. But no, production associates. So this is people in the production. Eventually, bots will be helping with the production, but right now, I sort of really
Yeah, we're
doubt
not
it.
quite there yet.
Okay, so Tesla, they have not dropped a demo recently, but looks like they're hiring. Here is what's happening in the industry. There's a company called Apptronik. They're founded partnership with NASA. They have a partnership with Google DeepMind, and now they've just announced that they've raised $350 million Series A funding, co-led by B Capital Group, Capital Factory, participation from Google. This They say this pivotal moment will fuel the deployment of Apollo. That's what they call the bot. Also allows us to scale operations, get us one step closer to meeting global demand for humanoid robots. So, Apptronik has been around. This is the just to see it in action. It's able to sort. It does have hands. It's able to walk as well. And they were one of the first and early ones to actually show that they can do pick and place sorting. This was one of the earlier videos about a year ago. Thoughts on this raise?
Yeah, we expected that they would raise some money for some time now, and so it's taken maybe them a little bit longer to do this. But it's nice that Google is choosing to participate here. It makes sense to me that all of the big cap tech companies should have an interest in humanoid robots in one way or another. And so Google was sort of conspicuously absent from that list for a while. And so, sort of unsurprising to me that they've kind of popped up as an investor in Apptronik.
Yeah. Google DeepMind has obviously was the original, right?
Hmm.
AI, autonomous bots. They were doing all this for a long time. And I think they have a lead in what you and I call human scale bots, like these arms, these hands, small devices. And we didn't know if they were going to get into humanoids. And here you go. They've picked Apptronik as their partner. They could have multiple partners, but right now, this is who they're investing in. This is who they partner with. And it looks like that this is going to be their path out there, Google. So, like you said, every Mag 7 has to pick one, right? So this is looks like there's their one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to see sort of an explosion
Mhm.
of investment in humanoid bot companies. We already started to see that last year, kind of a first round. I think there'll be a whole nother round of investment in many of these companies, particularly as they attempt to scale up manufacturing. There's going to need to be a lot of capital
More money.
involved
Yeah.
in funding that. And I also think we're going to see an explosion probably of some different ideas. We're already seeing one humanoid bot company make the bot without legs, and
Hmm.
it kind of sits on a table and can do things. I think we're going to see lots of different ideas with respect to bots. My belief is that the humanoid form factor ultimately is the one that's going to win out because it's the
Hmm.
most generalized solution. You can put it anywhere and it can do almost anything eventually. But I think there may be some uses that we discover for highly specialized, just robotic arms, AI robotic arms, that may be very effective in certain situations. For
Oh, for
example,
sure.
if
Yeah.
you're a restaurant and you're preparing,
Mhm,
burritos, do you really need
mhm,
the whole humanoid bot form? Perhaps not. You might
mhm.
just need the arms.
Yeah. Makes sense. So the next company, of course, that everybody's following after Tesla, people think is the next leader in the space is Figure AI. This is what the Figure AI looks like. All right, the humanoid bots. I went there physically, met with them, and saw their factory at the time. And in fact, what's happening now is some big news here. They are actually building buildings. These Brett Adcock, the CEO figure, has decided that he's going to build his own humanoid bots instead of what many other humanoid bot companies are doing. Is they're partnering uh, and instead of partnering with other factories and buildings, they're going to create their own factories. And so Figure is about to move in to these multi-building campus. These are pretty big. He posted this saying human for scale. It's a pretty big factories, and there's going to be many of them, and that they're about to move in a couple of weeks. He also shared that they have a second large commercial partner. The first one is BMW, who in January said that we're going to buy a bunch of Figure bots, and we're going to, like, they're permanently here. They're already working and they're permanently here. It's no longer this pilot prototype thing. But now there's a second commercial that they'll announce sometime later, looks like in about 30 days. So he said, Figure 2 humanoid robots shipping out today, heading to our second customer. In less than 30 days, we had our robots performing end to end work, all using a single neural net. We'll share a detailed update on this soon. The next 30 days are going to be insane. So basically saying that actually surprisingly it took them less than 30 days to train a bot to do. And I think he said that this particular bot for this particular customer is a lot more complicated than what they were doing. Yeah, I think this is it. What's interesting is that this new use case is extremely challenging. Traditionally, robots have struggled to manipulate objects like this, often finding it nearly impossible. Surprisingly, neural networks handle it remarkably well. He says, "In our lifetime, you will see more humanoid robots than humans when you're out and about."
I think that previous comment there, Herbert, actually is pretty interesting because one of the things that a lot of us have worried about is the scalability of robot training. And if these neural nets are able to be trained in very short order, that's very encouraging, right? Because ultimately, these bots need to be trained on tens of thousands of activities. And so, how do you effectively train a robot? Is that going to be a slow process or will it be very quick? If it's very quick, then that's very encouraging for the development of humanoid bots. It means that demand won't be a problem. The problem will be
Mm.
manufacturing. That will be the bottleneck.
Yeah.
I think it's a very smart move that Figure is attempting at least to manufacture their own bots. I think that's going to
Mm.
be a very challenging path. Manufacturing anything in large quantities is not easy. So I'm sure it'll be a bit of a challenge for them. But I think long term, if they can figure that out, pun intended, I guess, if they can
Yeah.
figure it out, it'll be a good thing for them.
Yeah, it's a choice and a strategic choice, but obviously they have no experience doing this. They have to build the factories. But I guess you could argue same thing with Tesla 12 years ago. Same thing with lots of companies like Neo or the other Rivian and so forth. They had to figure this
Mhm.
out themselves. You've got these bots moving and they're able to pick and place. This is for BMW. They copied they replicated the cells. These are exactly what it looks like at big BMW, and they put it their own so they can train it. And just like you were saying, just a few months ago, it took them a lot longer to train. It's sounding like that it's the training part is not going to be the bottleneck. And so that is a big deal if that's the case. Yeah.
If that is true, that is extremely encouraging for the rapid development of humanoids. That would be
Yeah.
the one thing I think I would worry about with humanoid development is how long does the training, how long will that take? What's involved in doing that? Is it teleoperation? Is it simulation? Is it something else? And if they can figure out ways to shortcut that and make that very quick, that is very exciting.
I think what's interesting would be, and I remember Elon actually did make this comment at the earnings call, isn't it? He's like, it's like you need to, uh, uh, their plan in Tesla is to mass produce bots, right? 5,000, 10,000 this year, 50,000 next year. Well, if you have 50,000 bots next year, what kind of jobs can they do? What kind of use cases can they be used for? And then he said that we need to have the training for this use cases match with the number of bots we'd have. And so I think it's okay at this point because it's pick and place and maybe another version of pick and place. And then so, okay, we train that. But you know what I mean? To get to that next level
Yeah.
of skill sets. We'll see.
Well, there was that one comment that you and I talked about in the video where we talked about Elon's comments from the conference call, where he said that humanoids have, 1,000 or 10,000 times the number of uses as a
Yeah.
vehicle, but the compute might be a 10x increase in the amount of compute that's necessary.
Yeah.
And he was talking about something like $500 billion of compute spend. So that there too, if Elon's right about that, that's another huge hurdle for a lot of companies.
Yeah.
Now, of course,
So
companies like Figure have some pretty, well-heeled partners, right? With their investments from, NVIDIA and Microsoft and others. So that's really interesting in terms of how much compute are these companies will they need to invest in order to be able to train their bots.
right. Can any mom and pop just create something and launch it and sell it? Or do you at some point, depending on your definition of what services they offer, and you might need, like you said, only the big Mag 7s, only the ones with billions of dollars with data centers would compute all that. We'll
Yeah.
see. So one of the big things that happened this week is we finally started hearing a lot of the Mag 7s. We talked about Google investing in Apptronik just a few days ago. Now we've got news from both Meta and Apple, what they're going to do. So let's talk about what Meta has announced that they're going to do. Meta plans major investment into AI powered humanoid robots. The company's aiming to be the engine powering humanoid market. Ex Cruise CEO Mark Witten is going to run the new group in Reality Labs. So Meta plans to work on its own humanoid robot hardware with an initial focus on household chores. Its bigger ambition is to make the underlying AI sensors and software for robots that will be manufactured and sold by a range of companies. So it's almost like they are like the tech inside, although it says its own human or robot hardware. So I think it's not like they're going to create their own human or robot. They're going to create the tech inside. Meta started discussing its plan with robotic companies, including Unitree and Figure. So there you go. Figure might actually take advantage of Meta. And, Meta has technology that they created for the Meta glasses, which I actually have, right? The ability to use vision cameras to spot things. So I don't understand the environment. At least initially, it doesn't plan to build a Meta branded robot, something that could directly rival Tesla's Optimus, but it may consider doing so in the future. Yeah. So right now, it's still exploratory, but at least they know that they have to get into this because honestly, I don't know why it took them this long to get there. What was your thoughts when you heard this?
I think this one's very interesting because Meta has, a large, the open source large language model.
Hmm.
And so obviously, I think to them that embodied AI is going to be huge, right? I don't think it's any mystery that that's the case. And so if Meta wants to be a major player in this, they need to be involved in some way. And do they want to go down the path of making a humanoid bot themselves, or do they just want to be basically the brains of the humanoid? Right. And we heard, I think it was last week, where
Yeah.
Figure decided to drop OpenAI,
Hmm.
right? And I'm guessing probably now that they're going to be using Meta's model. We'll have to see if that's the case or not. And they may come with a number of benefits, certainly a lot cheaper. But from Meta's perspective, they're going to need a lot of training data in order for their model to be helpful and useful in robots. And so some partnerships. Hey, this will be interesting to see how this unfolds. But it's unsurprising to me that Meta wants to be a major player here.
It's Valentine's Day and everybody needs a dance partner.
That's right.
But it's like going, who's my dance partner? Unitree, Figure.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
so
it's
they
it
have
may
to
be
get
a bit
into it.
like NVIDIA where they partner up with many companies. They hedge
Yeah,
their
that
bets a
sounds
bit.
like what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence on what it just sounds like a little too late. They cannot create their own bot. They don't have manufacturing capability. So they go, what do we have? Well, we got these glasses, we've got this technology. Let's see if bot companies will want it.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this develops. I'm actually kind of intrigued by this whole thing.
Oh,
At the very least, I would rather have Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk rather than fighting each other.
mm.
I'd rather have their robots fight each other if we're gonna go down that road.
Sure, okay. We'll see if that happens.
The
Well,
Zuckbot against the Optimus.
Zuckbot. Let's see what happens, but, we've got Apple, Tim Cook. Let's see what they are going to get into robotics as well. Sounds very similar to what Meta's doing, but before we get there, this was announced by Tim Cook, just yesterday. They said that, get ready to meet the newest member of the family, and they're going to do a launch on Wednesday, February 19th. And this is looks like a hardware. That's all they showed was just this image of the logo. What's unique and curious about this is that Elon actually reposted this. Now we know that Tim and Elon have kind of made amends. They were both seen together at the inauguration, um, and uh, Apple recently decided they're going to start advertising on X again. So it's just could be as simple as that. But in addition to that, this report came out again yesterday, and apparently Apple is secretly planning powerful humanoid robot to rival China and Tesla. They're prioritizing sensing hardware and software. I think this is a little bit or
Ooh,
exaggerated
yes.
because really it's just R&D. They just want to get into understanding what's going on, and they're prioritizing sensing hardware and software over the physical design in robotics developments. Again, sounding very similar to what Meta is doing. Actively researching robotics with a focus on both humanoid and non humanoid designs. And according to this Apple analyst, the company's work in this area is still in the early stages with a mass market product unlikely before 2028. They just got started. So this is revealed because a research paper from Apple was discovered and exploring human interactions with non-anthropomorphic robots, specifically using a Pixar-style lamp as an example. So, well, while this research hints at possible future consumer robots, it primarily serves as a proof of concept study rather than a concrete product plan.
Yeah, my reaction to this is that Apple is probably likely to explore the non-humanoid bots.
Mm,
And I think that's also kind of exciting because
mhm,
there may be many applications for non-humanoid bots that make it really fun in a consumer environment and also make them
mhm,
a lot cheaper. And part of the challenge here too, I think, is obviously to bring the cost down so that mass market can afford them, right? But also bring people along and be excited about interacting with robots. And a lot of people
mhm.
right now are very scared, and for good reason. So Apple may be an important player here in terms of just finding all the different ways that people can interact with robots that don't look like the human form, right? And that's kind of exciting. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I
Now, in
like
my
it. Yeah.
opinion, eventually all roads lead to the humanoid robot
Mm.
because the world's designed for humans by humans. And so ultimately, if you want your bot to be as useful as possible, it needs to fit in with the world that's been designed by humans. And the best way to fit in is to be human like.
Yeah, I would say that it's going to be equal 50-50. 50% of bots will be humanoid, but 50% will be an explosion of all sorts of different kinds of bot animals. It's like the Star
Mhm.
Wars. You have the C3POs and you have the R2D2s and you have the little guys that are running around everywhere.
Yeah.
And you'll have bots, like you said, in the arms. You'll have little things that are just on your kitchen table. Um, but it makes sense that Apple's doing this, right?
Mhm.
Because if they can focus on they should have done it years ago. It's it's one of the things I'm just so frustrated with Apple. They're so set up for this. They could have created a small, not a humanoid, but some sort of small home bot, like a Roomba, right? Would have been perfect for them. But what they do so well is the interaction between the consumer and the device. That you love the device, that you can understand how to communicate with it. It communicates back to you. This feeling that it's, part of your family, part of you.
Mhm.
um, they
Yeah, I
should been
think
doing
a,
this.
a small bot, one that
Mm.
looks very friendly, one that's very kid friendly,
Yeah.
one that kids can interact with, I think could be a very interesting product. And it doesn't really have to do a whole lot other than be there and be able to be so you can interact with it. Right? It's not necessarily something that's going to help you wash dishes in the kitchen or fold laundry. I suppose it might at some point, but if it's small, it just needs to be kind of a companion. And I think that
Yeah.
Apple's set up well for that.
this thing here that I was going to show again. It's kind of most people are just saying, "Oh, actually, it's just an SE, iPhone SE. It's a cheap iPhone." That's all it is. Don't get excited, and it makes sense, right? Get ready to meet the newest member of the family. So, member of the family is means there's a new sibling, a new version of it. So, probably just going to become this iPhone SE. Now,
Yeah,
why
I
did
don't
Elon?
expect a bot announcement
No,
next week on this.
certainly not a bot. But
Yeah,
if Elon's reposting it, could be that Grok is part of this,
could be.
and somehow, and Apple has said that they are LLM agnostic. Right now, they launched with
Hmm.
OpenAI, and Apple Intelligence is not doing very well. Maybe they'll throw in Grok now that they're good friends, and we know that Grok is one of the leaders in the space. So why not, right? Anyways, that's what I'm hoping, but it could be just a simple here's a phone.
Yeah, in a interview yesterday with some folks in Dubai, Elon was talking about Grok and how
Yeah,
it'll be the best large language model out there that no one else will be able to catch them after a couple of
anymore.
weeks.
Yeah,
So Tim obviously is probably aware of the developments with Grok, and
yeah,
I would imagine that they would want to be associated with the best AI out there. And if it's
yeah.
going to be Grok, then it would be smart for Apple to have a relationship there.
Yeah, because Elon said, right, it's built with the most compute ever. And then he's saying what he's projecting is that no other company is going to be able to catch up to how much compute they're going to make. So he thinks that Grok no one will pass it again at
Hmm.
this point. We'll see. This is exciting. Okay,
Yep.
so that's Apple, that's Meta, that's Google, that's Figure and Apptronik. Let's talk about the Chinese bots. So we know, and we've been following this super closely, the Chinese government has made it a strategic national initiative to bet big on robots, humanoid robots specifically. They did the same thing with electric vehicles, and you saw what happened. They are conquering electric
Hmm.
vehicles. They're trying to go global, but they have hundreds of electric vehicle companies in China, and they said we want to be the leader in humanoid robots by 2027. And they do you know what that means? That means that they're investing heavily, and so we have been seeing, and you've been tracking it, and it's now getting out of hand. One Chinese company after another showing off their skills. So the question I want to ask you is whether or not, is it like the electric vehicle market? So there's people, this is common. Sam Corris from ARK Invest shared a report that came out in June that there is 160 human or robot manufacturers worldwide. And he says, we've seen the story before with autos, electric vehicles, rocket companies, eVTOLs. Like a new technology comes, hundreds and hundreds of companies form, company creation, which is good, leads to advancements, but then there's consolidation. This is the research that said there were over 160 robots as of June 2024, of which more than 60 were in China, 30 in US, and about 40 in Europe. In addition to having the largest number of manufacturers, China stands out for the way its EV sector is backing most of these robotic companies. So they're using the same supply chain, the same manufacturing factories. It really does make sense, doesn't it? If you can make an electric vehicle, could you make a humanoid bot? So I said to him, those, I guess I am debating this. I don't there will be many companies fail. Absolutely. But it's not going to be like the electric vehicle market where there's so much consolidation for two major reasons. One is the EV market is very razor thin margins. You produce a car, you make very little money, and that's it, one time sale. Here, a bot is high margins. We're talking $100,000 per year for many years and
Hmm.
ongoing. And two, the EVs have one use case. They can drive you from point A to point B. And a bot has unlimited use cases. So I always think to myself, well, okay, let's say there's hundreds of humanoid bot companies form, and then one bot is about to die. One vendor can't sell it. Then what if they make a sumo bot? My bot's 400 pounds and it could do these niche thing better than everyone else can. I think they could still survive if they pivot and they survive. What's your thoughts on this? Because it's a big debate that's been happening, and we still continue to hear people think that there's going to be massive consolidation. And again, just to be clear, there will be many companies fail. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
Just not the same as EVs, though.
No, I tend to agree with you. And just actually to add to your point about the recurring revenue and high margins,
Yeah.
Maybe even a more important point with that, or a differentiator for bots, is when you make EVs, you've got to sink billions of dollars into building a factory. So the capital amount that you've got to invest to build vehicles in this massive factory is much bigger than the capital you'll have to sink into a factory to build bots. It's going to be a much smaller operation. So, in other words, the fixed cost for
Mhm.
EVs is much bigger than the fixed cost for bots to build them. So, that reduces the financial pressure on anybody. They won't have to make as many in order for them to cover that fixed investment and to get to a point where they have positive margins. And that's the tremendous challenge that Rivian and Lucid and others have run into. Right? They haven't been able to ramp up fast enough to cover those fixed costs. And same thing with Ford, frankly. They're losing a ton of
Mhm.
money on
Mhm.
every EV they sell. With bots, it's not going to be nearly that situation. They won't have to put as much money in. The margins are so much higher. So almost instantly you get to profitability, right? Or not instantly, but you don't have to make that many in order to get to profitability. And so for that reason, I think in the early years, I think we could actually see a lot of companies that are actually making money in this space, assuming they have access to the technology that's needed to make these bots as useful and capable. And eventually, I think there'll be some differentiation there.
Mhm.
You know, somebody will develop a hand that's better than all the other hands. Now, the question is, can all the other companies copy that? They
Mhm.
probably can, because they can all
Mhm.
go buy one of these bots, take it apart, and figure out how it's made. So there won't be any mystery on the hardware side. Will there be any differentiation on the AI brain part? And it's quite likely that in the long run, probably not. So it really will come down to ultimately your ability to manufacture it at scale. And so
Mhm.
eventually that will matter. But in the early days, when you're getting
Mhm.
$100,000 a year or whatever the number is for bots, there's plenty of money for everybody. But when you do get to the point where you're selling these things for, let's say, 25,000 a year,
Mhm.
and the recurring revenue maybe at that point has come way down, then yes, it's a scale operation.
It's a scale operation.
That's when
Yeah.
it really matters.
Gotcha. Yep. So it's a nuanced answer, but I wanted to hear your feedback on that because obviously you've done so much work on the forecasting and the margins and so forth.
Yeah,
And but we both agree it's gonna be like the EV market, but it's not gonna be exactly like it. It's just higher margins, recurring revenue, lower costs, lower assets,
yeah.
and unlimited use cases. That's the part I think that people are not recognizing is that there are just so many use cases. You could say, I'm gonna make the best kite flying bot ever. I
To
don't know.
me, this is a bit like the dot com boom,
Yeah.
in that those dot com companies also had pretty limited hurdles in becoming profitable. The question is, there was only room for so many of them. Obviously, there was going to be huge consolidation, but yet they attracted a lot of capital because if you won, it was a winner take all or a winner take most situation, right? There was only one eBay, and so on.
Yeah.
So in the early days, I think you get a lot of excitement for investors to say, okay, this company could become big, therefore I will invest in it, and you get an explosion of investment in the space and all these different companies. And that is good because it allows these companies to develop and allows the cream to rise to the top.
Yeah.
But yes, eventually there has to be some consolidation with that.
Well, let's take a look at some of the other bots here. You've got, wake up and smell the software update. So these Chinese researchers, they've developed this software, this RL framework, enabling human or robots to stand up across diverse real-world scenarios. The trained policies demonstrate robustness to external forces and exhibit emergent like fall recovery.
Yes. Yeah. Some of these, what this bot can do, I think, is pretty impressive. In all these different scenarios, being able to get itself up off the ground very quickly.
Now it's just a software update. So again,
Yeah.
it's going to be open source. Lots of companies will be able to do this. Not sure that this is a advantage, but that's the point of just showing the progress is happening so quickly.
And you
These
think
going to be
about
very
bots
useful.
getting in and out of a vehicle,
Yeah,
no problem. Software update, boom.
pretty cool. And then we've got this other one here from Booster Robotics. This guys can do kung fu. Oh my god. Why did they do this?
The stability of this bot while it's being hit while moving, it actually
Oh,
is very impressive,
yeah.
and the durability of this, and it just stands right up. You know, what I was sort of joking with folks on X is, what will the bots think while we're sleeping? Do they want to test the durability of humans? So we have to be careful, but this is impressive how durable this little bot is.
This is my point. So, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you show something? I'm going to make my bot be something that you can't move and it won't, won't be able to be hit when the neck won't break. So then they show this. How useful is it? How important is this? Especially how small that bot is. It's so tiny. Can it really do what kind of use cases can it really do when you're that short, that small?
Well, it's
But
important in the sense that you want to show people that your bot can handle almost anything.
yeah.
That's not really a use case. It's just showing that, hey, we built this bot really tough, right? This built Ford tough, so to speak, right? You want to show people that this bot can handle anything. So I think that is important. And ultimately, the winners in the bot space will have the most useful bot, the most durable bot, the one that uses the
That's what
least
I'm saying.
energy.
So many different ways to differentiate yourself
Yeah,
from other bots. Uh, Here's the next one, which is this Unitree. What dance would you like to perform here?
this
Where is
one's
it now?
impressive.
You like it?
This
You
one
like this,
already
didn't you?
dances better than Scott Walter. I've seen
For
Scott's
sure,
moves. Scott can't move like this,
better than me, for sure.
and better than me too, honestly.
Yeah, again, we see these Chinese robot companies and they're showing off with these kinds of moves. It's hardware and they can move. But again, there's this notion, what do you think about that, right? What There's notion that all the legs are for humanoid bots is to take you from point A to point B. Yes, when you're carrying something, it's useful, but most of the jobs that you want a bot to do, it's the hands. And they don't have as much progress as I say TeslaBot does in the hands. Like, can it play piano? Can it pour you water? Not as much. Can it, even type on a computer, right? Can it press buttons?
Yeah.
Almost everything you do, but walking and dancing and all that,
I think the thing in terms of a bot's ability to dance and walk like that is, can it recover itself when it stumbles on something, which will inevitably do, particularly if it's in the house? So I think that's part of it, right? If you have this bot that can move that way, then it's showing a capability of being able to self-correct. And also, in a consumer environment, that's kind of fun. Like, who wouldn't want a dancing karaoke bot, right? That would be one of 10,000 use cases,
yeah,
but why not?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's they're showing off. They're trying to compare one. Look at our advance. Please invest in us some more.
Hmm.
We'll see if it actually adds to a use case. Of course, it will. I'm not saying it isn't, but it's just it's interesting. And here's another approach. Let me turn that off. Oh, let me play it, but turn off their audio.
The music is
It's
very foreboding here.
yeah.
Yeah. This is Clone Robotics, which I think is operating in San Francisco, but I think it's a Polish-based company, if I'm not mistaken. They've taken a very different approach, you can see, in terms of what their bot looks like. Basically, it's everything covered with a layer of skin, and so this is a bit more creepy looking, but it is very interesting. And as we discussed in a recent video, Clone, you know, th- they were sort of aggressively going after Elon in terms of his claims about the hand,
Mhm.
and saying that their hand is better and the bot is lighter, the bot is stronger, etc. So this is interesting. This is a company doing something very different. Um, and here is an example of a bot without legs, and yet you can imagine this thing could be very capable at some point. Also very creepy. It may be a great use case in a haunted house to have a few of these things,
Exactly.
right?
And an actuated abdomen. So I guess
Yeah.
that allows you to bend over or something like that a little bit better. And again, that's fine. You can make whatever approach you want to make, but can you manufacture it? Can you sell it? It looks cool, but where is this useful for? You
Yeah,
know,
the question is it more manufacturable? Is it more
hmm
durable? Is it cheaper? Is it lighter? Is it
hmm
faster?
is it safer
Is it
against other
safer?
humans? Yeah.
Right. Yep.
hmm when it's near humans. And then here's MentiBot. They're teasing this and they're coming. So who's MentiBot? And they sound like a pretty important company, right? They're one of the
Minty
more
is the
important.
Israeli company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, turn off the
So
way.
it's nice to see that this is a global phenomenon now in terms of development.
Hmm.
And again, it speaks to what we've been saying for quite a while now, that this has the potential to be the world's largest product segment. And I think we're beginning to see the development effort and the money flow into this. And the fact that Microsoft and Nvidia and Google and Meta and Apple and Tesla and did I say Amazon are all putting money into this
Hmm.
is a strong sign that something big is developing here. This one's neat because they can just take the battery off out of the back
Yeah.
and hot swap it. And the bot is still waving its arm there, so that's interesting. Now, whether that's necessary or not, I don't know, but they feel like having a hot swappable battery is,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yep. This is it. It's explosion has happened. So a year ago in January last year, do you remember what was happening? It was hilarious. It was like me, you, and Scott talking about bots, and everybody saying it's not going to happen in our lifetime. It's going to be
Yeah.
10, 15 years away. It's you have to. There's huge hurdles for bot hardware and the training. And then from January to March to April, we saw one every single day, every single week, a brand new bot company coming out and going, look what we can do. And then everybody's minds changed and it changed their perception. Now all of a sudden it can work. Then because again, your table here started tracking where everybody's headed here, and you commercial focus, right? Remember at one point they were all research, so many of them were just research, and then all of a sudden we started having commercial people companies coming out saying we're going to really do this. Then they showed videos of walking publicly. Not everybody had hands yet, they were just doing pick and place of boxes. Then it was we were waiting for, can they do useful work or not? And a lot of people thought they'll never be able to do useful work. Useful work's defined as being able to do something. uh, it doesn't have to be equally as fast as a human, but it needs to be something that is repeatable. It can actually replace a human, even it's like three shifts versus one. But can it do useful work? And then you did a lot of work calculating whether or not it's actually going to financially be something that a customer would actually buy and be able to then make sense financially. And then we started seeing some LLM and voice integration. We haven't seen as much of that these days. Autonomous work, and then training the bot to do something, and then pilots actually in an actual real world commercial environment. And then now do you have actual customers? People are actually buying it now, paying you money for it, and it's happening. Mm.
That's right. Yeah, it's been interesting development. This has all happened very quickly. And to your point, a lot of people a year ago were saying that this will never happen in their lifetime. So now I think that that timeline has been massively accelerated. It's interesting on the LLM and voice integration. Figure is the only one that I can think of with really a great demo on that, or where they picked up the Apple.
Mhm.
It was a conversation between a human and the bot. I wish that we would see more on that, and I think we will in time. Autonomous work, I think we've seen quite a bit of that. And the announced pilots, in many cases, some of these companies have more than one. I've just listed, one or so on these. Apptronik has, for example, announced pilot with Mercedes, but also GXO, right? And GXO is deploying bots from Agility. So many of these bot companies are working with some of the same customers already. And Amazon, by the way, who we haven't talked about today, bought Kiva Robotics years ago.
Yeah.
And Amazon has all kinds of robots in their operations today. Now, not humanoids yet, but they have gone very heavy into robotics to move packages, to move all kinds of things around in these warehouses, all kinds of different shape robots for different purposes. So Amazon will be a major player in this market as well. Yeah, it's an exciting time. I think a year from now, we're going to see many companies be manufacturing bots and deploying them, and
Yeah.
we'll
So
be more focused
yeah.
on how many that is rather than whether they are or not.
It's very odd, right? This is the week. This week was when we had Meta announce we're going to do it. Apple research showing that they were going to do it. Apptronik. Google DeepMind had already shown that they have a partnership with Apptronik, but now
Mhm.
Google's investing in Apptronik. You've got uh, what else? Figure and partnering with Meta, possibly. Looks like that's what Meta wants to do. And then there's one more that I'm missing here. Obviously, just the big boys. They're all getting
Mhm.
into this and they're all investing in this. OpenAI themselves
That's right.
announcing that they are going to do human to robots. It's almost like a pivot.
Mhm.
LLMs might actually turn out to be a commodity.
Yeah.
Everybody can do LLMs. And so now it's like, what do? We better get into physical AI, which is robotaxi or robots. So this is it. Every major company's done it. Now you've shown in your table that it's gone to Japan, it's gone to Israel, it's gone global. Um, they're catching up, right? But the Chinese have been investing significantly on this. And one thing that message you and I want to share quite often here is that the United States has to invest in this, support this. All these American companies, this is a national security, this is economic security, this is something so critically important. Any business that have bought these, will be that much more effective. I encourage people, if you haven't seen this yet, there is a number of videos that Cern and I have done on my channel, and he did one on Walmart. He's done one on many companies showing exactly what would happen if one company had the first 10,000 bots or 1,000 bots, and the other company takes 3 years to finally get their bots in place. It could be disruptive for
Yeah,
that
and
company.
here's something to think about. I think that's really simple. This is both works for companies and for countries. The economic output of a company or country
Mm,
is basically the amount of labor times the productivity of that labor.
mm,
Humanoid bots address both parts of the equation, right? So you can scale up labor in a way that you could never possibly do before. And the productivity of that labor will only improve as time goes on. It's like hiring workers, and every year they get 25% better, right? That doesn't
yeah.
happen with humans. They may get a little bit more efficient as they get used to doing certain jobs, but not to that degree. We're on an exponential curve of capability improvements with humanoids. Now, right now, today, they're not at human capability. They can't work at human speeds. They're not at human capability. They may make up for some of that lack by being able to work 23 hours a day, right? Or in the case of the hot swappable battery, 24
Mm,
hours a day,
mm-hmm.
right? Um, but soon they will start catching up in terms of their ability to do the things at human pace and eventually probably even faster.
Oh, it's almost guaranteed. I
Yeah.
mean, if you ask the experts here, which is going to be the hardest roadblock or bottleneck, it's going to be manufacturing, is it AI and autonomy and training, or is it speed? And most will tell you that once you've got autonomy and you've got the right hardware solved, the speed is crank it up. It's
Mhm.
not that hard to just say do it 10 times faster. They don't say that right now. It's because the bot manufacturing won't be able to handle it, or the autonomy is quite not there. We want to just make sure that it can quickly adjust to some small changes. It's almost an like, but I think we've heard some people. We've seen some demos already, didn't we? Where Sanctuary showed, I'm gonna triple the speed, and we can both hands are moving,
Mhm.
placing it, and they're like superhuman speed already. So that's not going to be the issue. It will be superhuman speed. There's almost no doubt.
It's like when we watch humans that are really good with a deck of cards,
Yeah,
right? And the
just
sleight of hand,
practice.
you
Yeah,
almost can't see what they're doing.
yeah,
Bots will be able to do that with almost anything
yeah,
at some point.
yeah.
It'll look like magic to us.
So
Yeah.
thank you. I'm glad that you've been doing all this work and following it. Follow Cern. Check out all the videos we've done on this channel. Go to his X account. He has the most, probably of most, a few other retail analysts out there that's doing all the research you're doing. Whether you're in corporate or you're a consumer that's really interested in what's going on with human or bots, follow Cern. Check out what he's producing out there. He's at Cern Basher on X. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye bye.
Herbert.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.